disrupted.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Been a fantastic day so far. So we got to share this little notation after dealing with the COVID pandemic and now finally seeing and witnessing and observing the horrific mess of what exactly this pandemic endured, what exactly the vaccines caused, and how people are reacting to it is far greater damage than what COVID actually did to people. It's far worse damage than what the virus was projected in it, because now we are seeing not only horrific adverse side effects, you are seeing increases in myocarditis among young people, but we're also seeing, and this is from a Harvard study from the Harvard Gazette, a dramatic rise in cancer in people under age 50. There's an uptake in young people under 50 years of age that are developing cancer at a significant rate at a higher period than any other time in history. But they're very safe and effective, according to YouTube. So this is a study from the Harvard Gazette, and it says, a study by researchers from Brigham and Women's Hospital reveals that the incidence of early onset cancers, including breast, colon, esophagus, kidney, liver, and pancreatic cancer, has dramatically increased around the world, with the rise beginning around 1990. In an effort to understand why more people under 50 are being diagnosed with cancer, scientists conducted extensive analysis of available data, including information on early life exposures that might have contributed to this trend. Results are published in Natural Reviews Clinical Oncology. From our study, we observed something called the birth cohort effect. This effect shows that each successive group of people born at a later time, e.g. a decade later, have a higher risk of developing cancer later in life, likely due to risk factors they were exposed to at a young age, says Shihu Ongio, a professor at Harvard Chan School and Harvard Medical School and a physician scientist in the Department of Pathology at Bingham. We found that the risk is increasing with each generation. For instance, people born in 1960 experience higher cancer risk before they turn 50 than people born in 1950. And we're predicting that this level will continue to climb in successive generations. Angio worked with lead author Tamaka Ugagi. I don't know how to pronounce these names. And colleagues from 2000 to 2012 to analyze global data on 14 cancer types that showed increased incidence in adults before age 50. Then the team searched for available studies that examined trends for possible risk factors, including early life exposures in the general populations. Finally, the researchers examined the literature describing clinical and biological tumor characteristics of early onset cancers compared with cancers diagnosed after age 50. In an extensive review, the team found that the early life exposure, which encompasses an individual's diet, lifestyle, weight, environmental exposures, and microbe, has changed substantially in the last several decades. They hypothesized that factors like the Western diet and lifestyle may be contributed to the rise in early onset cancer. The team acknowledged that this increased incidence of certain cancer types is in part due to the early detection through cancer screening programs. They couldn't precisely measure what proportion of this growing prevalence could solely be attributed to screening and early detection. However, they noted that increased incidence of many of the 14 cancer types is unlikely due to enhanced screening alone. Possible risk factors for early onset include alcohol consumption, sleep deprivation, smoking, obesity, and eating highly processed foods. Surprisingly, researchers found that while adult sleep duration hasn't dramatically changed over the several decades, children are getting far less sleep today than they were decades ago. Risk factors such as highly processed food, sugary beverages, obesity, type 2 diabetes, sedentary lifestyle, and alcohol consumption have all significantly increased since the 1950s. Among the 14 cancer types on the rise that we studied, 8 were regulated due to the digestive system. The food we eat, the food the food feeds the microorganisms in our gut, said Nagy. Diet directly affects microbe composition, and eventually these changes can influence disease risk and outcomes. So this kind of goes on to a kind of general note of why cancer has been kind of increasing in certain decades over the past few years. But the reason I want to show you this is because this leads into this video here, done up by the Vigilant Fox. And they don't mention this in the Harvard study, and maybe because they were compromised from big pharmaceuticals. Again, big pharmaceuticals profits off of the rise of cancer. So obviously they're going to be, on board to saying that they're going to combat this problem and we're going to do everything that we can, but not actually find the reasoning that trends are increasing. Not actually looking at the data analysis, but they're going to treat people the longevity through cancer treatments and through movements like that. So the Vigilant Fox points to this video done by Dr. Peter McCullough, who, if you've seen our videos of COVID, you know how important this doctor is. He's one of the top cardiologists in the world. Highly noted, highly quoted in medical journals and studies. He is like the Michael Jordan of cardiology. Like, this guy is the top dog of doctors. And he has been sounding the alarm on COVID. He's been sounding the alarm on vaccines. He's been sounding the alarm on uptake of all this. And he is stating that there is, on the COVID vaccine included, turbo cancer. The COVID vaccines, this is what he says, and I'm going to show you the video afterwards. The COVID vaccines have at least 3 mechanisms by which they could start a cancer or they could promote an existing cancer. So this is where I mean where the vaccines could be also tied to that study. They don't want to admit to that, maybe because that study was, how long ago was that? Does it say the date of this? So this is from September 8th of 2022. So maybe there was some backdoor money. Maybe they got bribed. Maybe there was some sort of, corruption that didn't involve the vaccines. But here is Dr. Peter McCullough, top world-renowned doctor, explaining how these spike proteins within the COVID vaccine is actually fast-pacing the means of people catching cancer. And that's why now, all of a sudden, we're seeing, sudden adult death syndrome is increasing. That's something we never heard in the past, how many years? And all of a sudden, it's increasing. That also goes for myocarditis. That goes into other adverse side effects. We're seeing more paralysis happening among so many individuals. But listen to this.
Hypothesis of oncogenesis after COVID-19 vaccination. What does that mean? It means the COVID-19 vaccines, largely messenger RNA vaccines, the messenger RNA itself can impair DNA repair. So it can actually begin to tip the scale towards cancer promotion in cells. The spike protein, the S2 segment, which one actually gets from the vaccine and not from the infection, the S2 segment in a paper by Singh and Singh from University of Pittsburgh appears to inhibit the P53 and BRCA tumor suppressor systems. Our natural tumor surveillance systems are impaired. And if one has a loss of function mutation in either one of these, a woman would recognize this as, quote, being BRCA positive. That would be a loss of function mutation in this surveillance system that could predispose somebody to cancer, particularly breast and female reproductive cancers. And then lastly, a recent finding that the messenger RNA vaccines, both Pfizer and Moderna, have DNA process-related impurities. And at least 4 labs have described this. 2 papers, one by Spiegler and the other by McKernan, have identified elevated levels of DNA fragments and size of the fragments that are considered process-related impurities. They come from circular pieces of DNA used that have the code for the messenger RNA. They're in the form of a plasmid in E. coli. And the fragments that are detected are the SV40 enhancer, promoter, and origin of insertion, as well as an antibiotic resistance fragments that are used in the manufacturing process. The reason why SV40 is important, it stands for simian virus 40. This is a known proto-oncogene activator. So in summary, the COVID vaccines have at least 3 mechanisms by which they could start a cancer or they could promote an existing cancer, and it may occur more rapidly because tumor defense systems are taken down. That's what we call turbo cancer.
So that could also tip the scale and show a dastardly statistic on why young individuals, or even the most healthiest individuals, are seeing a dramatic increase in certain cancers among young people. And this is where, again, Joe Rogan wasn't wrong when he said that young people, if you're a young, healthy, strapping lad or lady, that's, has good diet and exercise and living a normal, healthy lifestyle as a human being, it's not a risk factor to get you to the vaccine, even though they're very safe and effective. And I'm just telling you all this information so you can judge for yourself. Whether you do it or don't, it doesn't matter to me. But Joe Rogan was definitely on point when he told, I forget who his guest was at the time, but when he stated that if you're a young person, is it necessary that you get injected with this virus that is not going to harm you as much as someone that's in a higher risk factor, like the elderly? Like if we did the actual study and showed the data analysis of where this virus was the most contaminant, they said that it was towards elderly people with immune deficiencies and people that are already in healthcare situations. So it's alarming. It's alarming, and it's just it makes me angered for a lot of different reasons. I mean, we should be angry about the past few years when it came to COVID, how we've been lied to, how we've been scapegoated, how we've been segregated, and how we've been silenced, and everything in between. And nobody's going to pay the price for any of this. And now people are suffering because of this experiment, this scheme that has gone way too far on a global, massive scale, and has caused now significant damage to people. And I just feel so bad for the individuals that got caught up in this. For people that used to, attack me for exposing this data, for exposing the information. I know there's people out there that who were calling me anti-vaxxer, who were saying I was, a conspiracy nut, I was a tinfoil hat, I was a MAGA Trumper, and there's still people to this day that are doing that. Which is hilarious because I got 2 shots of Pfizer at the first instance of the COVID pandemic, and I too have side effects. I too have adverse reactions that I'm still dealing with to this day. I too got injured. So I know that pain. I know that heartache. And I also know the heartache of just cancer alone. I know many family members in my family that are either dealing with cancer or they unfortunately lost their life in the battle of cancer. So I know it's heartbreaking on so many different levels. But now to see young people that were trying to do everything right now exposed to basically an injection that's going to basically spark plug the idea that now your cancer is going to be fully charged. Either start one or just continue to boast one. It's criminally disastrous and evil and just it's absolutely morbid. And like I said, nobody is going to get a slap in the wrist. Nobody's going to get jail sentence. Nobody's going to be held accountable. No one from Fauci to Bill Gates, the NIH, the Pfizer, Moderna, Theresa Tam, who's the head leader of the Canadian uh, health regime here. It's just absolutely crazy. And again, I'm showing you this information uh, so that you're aware of this information and you can choose your best judgment based off all the information you have available to you. Because unlike pharmaceuticals that tell you that they're safe and effective, which I'll tell you they're safe and effective, but if they're very safe and effective, would they not show you all the data to make you feel more protected? Maybe because they're not as great as they claim to be. And maybe this is why.